Fuck no. Even when they're in a position to win a game that they probably shouldn't even be in a position to win, they still find a way to lose it.
Kicker fucking sucks. He left 7 points on the board.
That was the difference, bro. Look at that. We lost by 6 points.
Yeah. They lost by 6 points. He fucking left 7 points on the board.
I mean, shit. But we were texting about this, bro. I was telling you, like,
He's
I
done.
wonder. No, but why was there like discussion about like they should have just after Moody missed that field goal last week, they should have just benched him this week. I don't even know why they brought him back. I mean, yeah, the season's over already. We're not playing for the playoffs or anything, but it's like you still want to go out there compete and try to win. And Moody's obviously not your best kicker to do that, and it cost you today. Like, yeah, there was other factors, the Purdy interceptions, which we'll talk about too, but I don't know, bro. I mean, it's just frustrating.
I don't know, man. The Moody stuff is not new, bro. Like we've known that since like week 4 of the season. We've known that since the Super Bowl last year, right? So it's like,
we've known that since like week 4 of last season, like when he was missing those kicks.
He's not confident. He's just not confident, right? You can see it in his face. Anytime it's more than 40 yards, he doesn't know what the fuck is going to happen. Like he doesn't even know if it's going to go in or not. So it's like, bro, like I don't know.
It's annoying, man. I don't know. Like my stream is like a little bit behind on my TV, right? And I'll get messages from either you or from like another group chat, and all game was just like, Moody's a bum. Moody fucking sucks. Moody's ass. And then I already know, like, all right, he's gonna miss again. He's gonna miss again. He missed again. And even like every time he comes up, you still expect him to make it, right? Because it's his job. Even if he misses 3 in a row. And then it's just annoying, bro. I don't even know what to say. I mean,
well, he's a specialist, right? That's why he got drafted. That's why he gets paid is to be special. Those motherfuckers being special in the worst way possible. Like literally, he misses big kicks and big moments. That field goal that they missed in the second half. I mean, dude, that was huge. Like the momentum had swung towards Detroit's way. You kind of try to gain it back by going down the field again, right? Obviously, they get stopped on 3rd down, and you have to give it to Jake Moody to kick it because there's no other option, right? You're not going to fucking go for it on 4th and 7 or 4th and 8, right? You're going to give it to your kicker to make a play, and he can't even do that. Like that, he could have literally given us an 11-point lead at halftime. He could have given us a tie at that moment, right? When he missed that field goal. Obviously, the last one where Josh Dobbs runs it in for a touchdown. He misses the PAT. His confidence was shook, right? The announcers are even saying it too. They're like, you wonder what's going through his head right now. So it's just really, really tough. It's an underlying story of their season, man. They just can't finish. They just cannot finish.
I mean, like we're texting in the first half, right? You and I, and we knew after the first couple possessions, we're like, all right, this game's going to be a shootout. And you were like, first team to get to 35 is going to win. And I was like, first team that gets a stop is going to win. The Niners get that stop. And on the huge 4th down inside the 10-yard line, get a stop against Lions offense. That's what best in the league right now, right? And Purdy drives him all the way down, puts him in a position to get a field goal. And that's kind of just like where the momentum started to shift like a little bit, because you hit that field goal, you're up 10, going into the locker room, and you're feeling really good, especially after getting that stop. But that stop basically did nothing for you because you don't get the points to like capitalize on it, right? And then from there, things just start to go downhill. I mean, we can talk about all the Moody misses, which has been a big problem for the last, 2 seasons, right? But then when things really started to shift was when Purdy threw that first interception. I mean,
yeah,
that's
out of the building, man. That's when you knew, like, Detroit's going to win this game now. Like, it just felt like that's game. And it was from that point on.
But, I wonder, like, we saw so last week, Shanahan, right? Back to the Moody subject, Shanahan called out Moody right after the game saying, yeah, like, I don't know, you can't miss that, right? Basically saying, like, that's your job. And, you can see the frustration on everyone's face every time. And they put the camera on Shanahan every time after Moody missed one, which was 3 times tonight. And his reaction is the same reaction every fan had. But I don't know why there wasn't some sort of discussion about just pulling one of the backups and benching Moody. I don't care how it looks to fans or, for the front office, for the organization. At the end of the day, you got to put the people on the field who give you the best chance to win. And we saw this season that both of the Niners backup kickers did a better job than what Jake Moody's done. I mean, our first kicker comes in after Moody goes down. What was the guy's name? Wright,
Really
Matthew
good.
Wright. It was really good that game. I think he went like 3 of 3 or 4 for 4. Obviously, ended up getting hurt trying to make a tackle.
Yeah.
And then we get another backup.
Anders
Was it
Carlson.
Anders Carlson, right?
Yeah.
And
He was
he
solid.
came in. He came in for a game or two, and was really good. I don't even remember him missing, if I remember correctly.
He actually did miss a PAT, but he made all of his kicks though. Like I think he was 2
All
for
his
2.
field goals.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you have two backups that come in and can do the job better, like why keep rolling out Moody out there? Because that was the
Bro,
difference tonight.
I don't even know who the fucking Detroit Lions kicker is, and he's nailing 55 yarders in his sleep.
Bro, that guy drained a 57-yard kick, and Moody missed from 51. Yeah, look, people are going to say, well, the second one is from 58. Hey, it had the distance. It wasn't accurate. And the other guy just made a 57-yarder, so why should I give Moody a pass?
Yeah, and the thing is, right, we're not trying to turn this into like, a subject about like, oh, why he sucks at kicking, all that kind of stuff. Like he's cost us games. He cost them 3 fucking games this year, literally.
Yeah.
Right? Like that Rams game, that was all him. Him getting hurt, making a stupid fucking tackle, right? That's on him too, right? He didn't protect himself while he was trying to go for a tackle. That's still special teams gaff. I get it, but he doesn't know how to tackle, obviously, right? But he put himself in jeopardy by missing the rest of that game. They lost that game because he wasn't available. We go to the game last week against Miami, right? He makes that kick. It's a completely different scenario if you make that kick versus how that game ended out being, right? So, and you look at tonight, he misses when the Niners are up 8. He misses a field goal going into halftime. You come out in the third quarter, you miss a field goal again after the momentum had already swung in Detroit's favor. You had a chance to tie the game, you miss it. Then you go out and you miss another PAT in a still critical part of the game, even though the game might be out of reach. You don't have any timeouts left, whatever the situation is, right? You still score a touchdown. You hit that PAT, you get an onside kick. You never know what can happen, right? But it's just all these things that have like happened on special teams the entire season, right? Like there has not been one game where all 3 phases of the game, offense, defense, and special teams have been on the same page, and that's why this is so frustrating. Is that they never figured it out?
It's crazy. It's crazy, man. Because we blocked that first extra point attempt from the Lions too, and I was like, that's probably the first positive special teams play we've had like all season. Yeah. And it's a small thing, right? But hey, a point makes a difference in a game when it comes down to one possession. And then we talk about the fourth down stop that they had, but it didn't really matter again, right? Because they missed the field goal after. And look, yeah, Jake Moody, I know Shanahan said, yeah, he's our guy, whatever, maybe like a week or two ago, but that was just a PR play. Like Moody's definitely going to be off this team. Yeah. Cost us tonight, has cost us multiple times this season and in his rookie season too. So definitely don't expect to see him back, but fuck, man, it sucks to have the worst kicker in the league. And like I said, it's just annoying, bro, because I honestly thought we were going to get smacked tonight. I thought this was going to be a game where we lose by maybe 10, 14 points. And it's crazy that the Lions were only favored by 3.5. And then, you get a couple possessions in, you're like, okay, well, they don't have any defense. They can't stop anybody. So maybe this is going to be a tight game. And that's why they were only a 3.5 point favorite, right? But the Niners, just like they have all season, shot themselves in the foot, and it wasn't just the missed field goals. We got to talk about Purdy, phenomenal first half. He was so good in the first half, and I was really pulling for him, man. I mean, 14 of 16, 200 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and a rush touchdown in the first half. And you're thinking like, all right, Purdy's stepping up to the plate. He knows this is a big game. He sees all the chatter about his contract situation, right? He's trying to probably go out there and prove something. He's never going to admit to it, right? But guys see that, right? His agent tells him, whoever it is, his teammates, friends, family, they're telling him, hey, people are saying like, you're not worth as much money, this and that. Playing with a chip on his shoulder, comes out, balls out in the first half. Second half, it was a complete opposite, complete 180, 2 interceptions. And these were not one of those ones where you can say like, oh, receiver should have caught it. It was a deflection or something like that, right? The first one, he just airmails it to Pearsall. It was a high throw. It goes right into the hands of Kirby Joseph. And the second one, similar situation, right? Just a bad throw. And the safety was just looking at Purdy's eyes the whole time. Purdy was telegraphing it, and Kirby Joseph stepped in again and got his second pick. And there was a possession maybe before that where Purdy almost threw one that would have been his second, and this last one would have been his third. But I think safety slipped on that play. So we talk about Moody and his faults, but Purdy cost him tonight too. I mean,
Yeah.
2 interceptions. Is you can't do that when you're in a game like this. And there's sometimes where, like I said, you give it to like the DB if he just makes a really good play on it, or if a ball goes through a receiver's hand and DB catches it, like you can't really blame Purdy in those type of situations, but that wasn't the case tonight. So it sucks, man. I mean, Purdy's not really doing himself any favors with this huge contract negotiation that's coming up in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, the market is what the market is. He's going to get between 50 to 60 million, whether anybody likes it or not. You got
it's going to be closer to 50, I think.
Yeah, you got scrubs out here making 55. So, given Brock Purdy's resume when he has a full team around him, obviously, right, he's a completely different player. Obviously, the offensive line, like the first half, they held up pretty well. Second half, I think they did a pretty decent job as well, but they just couldn't get the run game going. And that's one thing that this offense thrives on is the run game, right? 19 carries, just like Eddie says in the comments there, is not going to cut it. Like, this is a team that has to run the ball 30 times to win every single game. So, you got to give Detroit credit where credit is due, right? They completely flipped the script on the Niners in the second half in terms of the defense. They learned the safety was learning to read the eyes of Brock Purdy because he knew that Brock Purdy is an anticipatory thrower. He anticipates where the guy is going to be rather than actually throwing to where the guy is going, right? So
just reacting, yeah.
So he's like a well-timed machine, right? Once his timing is thrown off, then he kind of gets a little bit rattled, right? Obviously, and he starts making mistakes, and that's what we've seen a lot of this season. Like, we wanted to see Brock take that next step. Like, how would he do without Christian McCaffrey? We've seen that he struggles without Christian McCaffrey. How would he do without Brandon Ayuk? We see that he struggles without Brandon Ayuk. How would he do without his left tackle, Trent Williams? We see that he struggled without Trent Williams. How would he do without Kittle? He struggled without Kittle. How would he do without Debo? He struggled without Debo. How does he do without everything else around him not being so well? He doesn't play well, and it's unfortunate. I mean, there's only 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the league that elevate every single person around them. That's Lamar, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and maybe you can throw one more person, maybe someone like Jalen Hurts, or
I'd say Stafford probably.
Or, those guys, they take it to a next level, right? We like what Tom Brady used to do. He used to take fucking no-name receivers, turn them into Pro Bowlers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Edelman is a fucking Hall of Famer because of Tom Brady, right? Like Gronkowski is a Hall of Famer because of Tom Brady. So, you got to take all that into consideration. It's like these guys, these top echelon quarterbacks that are making big money, they make everybody else around them better, right? Yeah, the market is what the market is, right? But for the 49ers, if you're going to invest $50 to $60 million of your future capital on this guy, you have to be 100% sure that he can elevate everyone else around him, which he did a great job of when he took over in 2022 and last year in 2023. But everything went right in those seasons. The times when shit would hit the fan, we saw how much he struggles. And ever since that Ravens game last season to end the year, Brock Purdy has been pretty much a 500 quarterback, right? Including obviously like he won a couple of games in the playoffs, but he's been a 500 quarterback since that game against the Ravens. So there's all these different things that you have to take into consideration. It might be just one of those situations that the league has figured out the Shanahan system. They know that he likes quarterbacks that are anticipatory throwers, right? Rather than like straight gunslingers that like throw it to where the guy's going to be, rather than like leading the guy or whatever the situation is, right? So I don't know, man. They got a lot of questions. Obviously, I know that Brock is probably the best answer right now. Unfortunately, there's nobody out there that's going to come in next year and help this team get over the hump, right? Unless we miraculously get Joe Burrow or something. Like that's not going to happen.
No, don't even put that out there.
But Brock Purdy is the future of the franchise, and it's like I feel comfortable calling him the quarterback. But the thing is, right? I feel like the sample size that we've seen this season when things go wrong is so bad that it makes you really think like, can this guy actually elevate dudes around him when he doesn't have full star potential around him.
I mean, here's the thing, man. We got to take a step back too, because the quarterback position is the hardest to play in the NFL. It's the one that's always going to get talked about the most. When you have a good game, you get credit for the win. When you have a bad game, it's going to go on the quarterback, right? When you have mistakes like Purdy did tonight. But, it's like what you said. Who's going to give us what other guy out there? People keep talking about Sam Darnold. Yeah, Sam Darnold's been phenomenal this season. It's the first time in his career that he's having a year like this. And guess what? That season Sam Darnold's having right now, Brock Purdy had that last season, right?
Yep.
When he had a full offense around him, all these weapons, a good offensive line, a defense to back him up, right? And hey, that's why Purdy threw for was like 35 touchdowns almost, had like 10 picks, I think 4,000 yards, had the season that he did. Sam Darnold's been phenomenal this season, but he also let's see him do it in the playoffs, right? If he gets his team to the NFC Championship, to a Super Bowl, hey, good for him. But who's to say that he's better than Purdy all in all? Like, yes, he's having this one good season. He's been better than Purdy this season, but he has an O-line that's been protecting him all year. He has Justin Jefferson. He has Jordan Addison. He has TJ Hawkinson. He has Aaron Jones. Healthy guys. All his stars have been healthy. All his players have been healthy. I know Jordan Addison missed the first few games, but Jefferson's been there all 18, right? Hawk missed the first half of the season, but Kevin O'Connell's done a good job with the guys he's had, and Sam Darnold's taking advantage of it, right? But like you said, the market is what it is for quarterbacks, and Purdy is going to get somewhere in the ballpark of $50 million in AAV. I don't think that he's going to get to that 60 mark that we've seen Dak Prescott get to, but he is going to get to that 50 mark. And look, Purdy did make some nice throws tonight. I think about that deep ball he had to Ricky Pearsall. Yeah, if it's like a little bit more ahead, it's a touchdown. But hey, the ball got to him, and it was a good throw. He could have overthrown it. He could have underthrown it. It was right there. Sure, like a little bit better of a ball. It's a touchdown, but that was a great throw. There was multiple throws he made tonight. I mean, a couple to Kittle, a few to Ricky Pearsall. Let's talk about Ricky, man, real quick too, because 8 receptions, 141 yards, and a touchdown. The best game of Ricky Pearsall's young career in the NFL. And it's funny, man. I was at the gym today, and I'm in the sauna, like at the end of my workout, and some few high school kids in there. They're talking about like football, Niners, this and that, and we all started talking about just the Niners season. And one of the guys is like, "Man, I don't know about Ricky." I'm like, "Ricky's gonna be good, bro. Like, he's not the problem. Obviously he didn't get an off season to train because of what happened. Him and Purdy don't have quite the chemistry there yet, but you got a flash tonight of what Ricky Pearsall is capable of, right? We saw that incredible catch he made, the one-hander where Purdy threw it like a little bit too far, but Ricky was able to reach out, control it, get the feet tapped, and secure the ball. And then obviously had the touchdown early on, but he carried it over into the second half, right? A lot of big plays. And he's a really good guy in open space because he's fast. Once he gets the ball, he can beat anyone. So, Ricky Pearsall, man, huge game. George Kittle went over 1,000 yards for the season. He had 8 catches for 112 yards also. So, when we talk about Purdy, and like, yes, the interceptions definitely contributed to the loss, for the 49ers, unfortunately. But Purdy still had his moments where he looked solid too. And like you were saying, right, Niners offensive line held up pretty well tonight for being their second and third stringers. I mean, Purdy was only sacked, I think, once, maybe twice in this game. And got to give credit to the O-line. Yeah, he was only sacked twice tonight. So it's rough, man. I mean, Purdy's had an up and down season, right?
Yeah.
He started the season so well. Bad game against the Vikings. I think he had 2 interceptions in that game. Obviously, the Chiefs game was his worst one of the season when he threw 3. The Rams game a couple weeks ago when he threw the late interception cost them. He had one last week, right, against Miami.
And that cost him
fourth quarter.
These are all on game-winning situations, game-winning type of situations, right? The Rams game was a game-winning type of situation. Obviously, against Kansas City, he threw 3 picks when, the game was still kind of like hanging in the balance. Last week, obviously, against Miami, he threw a pick. Against Minnesota, in critical times, he threw interceptions or he fumbled the ball.
Mm.
This game, in a critical time where you're down 3 points, throws a pick. So, or down 6 points and he throws a pick. So, there's everything has gone against him this year when it comes to game-winning situations. He's had one game-winning drive, and that was against the Buccaneers, and that too because the Niners got super super lucky that Jake Moody decided to make a kick. Otherwise, that probably would have gone down as an L as well. So, I don't know, man. We we have a lot of unanswered questions. Obviously, like you said, Ricky Pearsall, yeah, he's gonna be a stud, bro. He's super quick out of the breaks, right? Like, the jet sweep action with him is so nice.
Mhm.
It's just like night and day difference between him and Debo when they do the jet sweeps. Like, he just takes off and is just like he just feels like he's just so much more elusive than
He's
Debo.
electric. Yeah.
Right? So, you know, kind of like how Sati says in the comments there, it's the perfect loss. Purdy showed potential, but there's costly picks that can be used against him during contract talks, right? And obviously Moody is Moody is who he is, man. He's gonna be gone for sure. Sorensen, I don't know, man. He wasn't dialing up any pressure. Jared Goff he was like a fucking statue back there just throwing, right? He did.
Let's talk about Sorensen. I mean, this is you've been saying for a while now that he needs to get the boot too in the offseason. And Shanahan said a couple of weeks ago that um, that Sorensen's his guy, but we're looking at that thinking like, are you sure, or are you just saying that because you don't want to like kind of cause any issues? Um, but it's Sorensen just doesn't get creative with his defense. It's just the same thing every time, rushing four, no blitzes, no switching up coverages, no going from man to zone to man.
They
It's
don't
just
get
so predictable, right?
They don't have 4 elite pass rushers. They have 1 elite pass rusher.
Yeah, but Bosa was phenomenal tonight. Had a couple sacks, was getting there, but other guys weren't getting there tonight. And our DBs who have been like pretty good for most of the season, just tonight, it seemed like every time the Lions receivers were catching the ball, Niners DBs were nowhere in sight. I mean, you think about that touchdown that ARSB had on the goal line. It's 4th and goal, and ARSB is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, and nobody's even in the same area code as him. I mean, it seemed like Renardo Green was the one who was supposed to switch on to him, and he just for whatever reason got lost or thought the coverage was supposed to go a different way. ARSB walks in untouched for a touchdown. So as much as we talked about Moody and Eli, yeah, we talked about Moody for the first like 10 minutes of the show, but we're with you. He needs to get cut. He should have got cut after he missed the field goal last week, but he definitely needs to get cut. I think whether they do it tomorrow or wait until the season's over, he definitely should not be back on this team. Niners will definitely have a new kicker next season. Eli's asking for our Super Bowl picks. I think I don't know. I know we got a Lions fan watching in here. The Lions have been really good this season, but I do think the Vikings are going to win that game next week on Sunday Night Football, get that 1 seed. And there's a good chance the Vikings make a run to the Super Bowl, man. I just feel like they're a little bit more of a complete team than the Lions are. Brian Flores is a great defensive coordinator. He's been great all season. I kind of like, what he's doing over there. And then we talked about Sam Darnold and the offense too, what Kevin O'Connell's doing. So I think the Vikings come out from the NFC. AFC, I mean, I know it's easy to say Chiefs, but I do think the Bills are finally going to get over the hump this season. So I'm hoping for a Vikings-Bills Super Bowl. That's my prediction.
Yeah, Vikings-Bills would be nice. I would also like Lions and Bills. I feel like that would be super entertaining as well. Another one that I don't think anyone would see coming would be Rams, coming out the NFC. I've been telling you the last 3 or 4 weeks, they look like a super, super dark horse team to come out of the NFC. I feel like they can beat any team any Sunday. So I wouldn't be surprised if the LA Rams are in the Super Bowl, representing the NFC this year. In the AFC, I mean, obviously, like Chiefs, most likely it's going to end up being them, just given their record and the way that
playoffs are running through Arrowhead too.
Right, it all goes through Arrowhead unless the Bengals sneak in somehow, go on a run and meet them. It's hard for me to see Baltimore beating them. I can see Buffalo beating them. Baltimore, I'm not so sure if they could handle Kansas City.
Yeah, I'm not convinced of a Baltimore. I know Lamar is having a great season, an MVP candidate, but with Baltimore, I gotta see it to believe it. Because we know Lamar Jackson doesn't have the track record in the playoffs. He has a 2-4 record, I think it is, in the postseason. So we'll see. Josh Allen's definitely capable of doing it. I mean,
I feel like
He almost did it a couple years ago.
it's his year this year. Like just the way that things have been like panning out for the Bills, right? You know,
Yeah.
I think they scored 30 straight points in like 14 straight games, 13 straight games, something crazy like that. So I don't know, like it just feels like it might be their season. Obviously Kansas City, like as much shit as we like to give, Patrick Mahomes and that team, right? Obviously because of what they've done to the Niners over the past couple of years. Right, they're still a force to be reckoned with. Like that defense just carries, man. It's not even their offense; it's their defense is just so dominant, and that travels. Defense travels, right? No matter where you go. So
Real quick, we have an update on Purdy, like with the elbow issue he got at the end of the game. They're saying it's a nerve issue. So yeah, Purdy's not going to play definitely in Week 18. Consider him shut down for the season. We'll see what the severity of that injury is. Hopefully, it's not the same one he had last time in 2022 that cost him the NFC Championship game. So we'll see how much of a factor that plays into the contract negotiations in the offseason. But Eagles, that's another good team. I mean, the NFC, they've quietly had a really good season, and they're right there in the 2 seed, 3 seed mix. That's a team that's gone to the Super Bowl before, right? They have playoff experience. They have a quarterback, dual threat guy. They have Saquon, obviously, this year, he might win Offensive Player of the Year. It might come down to him or Joe Burrow. If Burrow gets the Bengals into the playoffs, he should be in the MVP conversation. He might not have the same amount of wins as Lamar or Josh Allen or Sam Darnold. I know people have been talking about him potentially getting some MVP votes, but Burrow's numbers have been the best of any quarterback in the NFL this season. And if he had a defense, they're probably in the playoffs already. So it'll be. I hope they get in. I know I was talking to our resident Chiefs fan on Saturday, Harpreet, and he said that's the one team that scares him is the Bengals. So he's really hoping they don't get in. He said, I'm not worried about the Bills. I'm not worried about the Ravens. He said, I'm worried about the Bengals.
It's the only team outside of Tom Brady that's ever beaten Patrick Mahomes in the AFC, right? So that's why he's afraid. He knows Joe Burrow is insane. He is insane. If he had a better offensive line and a better defense, my God, that guy would probably win MVP every single year. The way he plays.
How do we feel about Niners defensive corner Sorensen? Yeah, we've been talking about Sorensen all season, man. I mean, if Rob Saleh's out there and willing to come back and the Niners can get him, they'd be stupid not to. I mean, I don't know who else is going to become available while their options are out there, but the Niners would be dumb to at least not consider looking at other defensive coordinators in the offseason because this defense this year was not championship level defense. And I know we had a lot of injuries, right? Guys missing time for personal reasons, obviously, with what Mooney was going through. Dre Greenlaw and his situation. Bosa missed a few games. We lost Hargrave early in the season. So, but that's when as a DC, you have to get creative, right? We talked about switching up coverages.
Look at the Lions.
Yeah, Lions missing, right? Somebody in the comments was saying that the Lions were missing 6 of their starters.
Yeah.
They got after it tonight. Yeah, like the first handful of possessions, they, couldn't get stops. But at some point, in the second half, they turned it on. They got to Purdy 2 times. They intercepted him 2 times. So
scheme, bro. You have the players. It's a fucking scheme. The scheme is bad, right?
Yeah.
Scheming comes down to coaching and play calling. So I don't know. I don't think it would be wise to give Sorensen another season if they're really serious about contending next season, because they still have a win now roster if they play their cards right. Obviously, a lot of these guys are still in their prime. There's a lot of mileage on the guys on the defense and on offense, respectively. But I feel like you can still squeeze something out of them if you put a lot of complementary pieces around them, and if you have the right coaching staff around them as well, right? We've seen in the past where D'Amico Ryans, Robert Saleh, hell, even Steve Wilkes, they got the most out of this defense when it mattered the most, right? We had top 10 defenses the last 5 or 6 years, and that is like nowhere to be seen this season. Like we have no pass rush. You can't stop the run. It's been so embarrassing this season to see so many running backs, run up and down the field on the 49ers. Obviously, like the DBs, miscommunication all season, all the cushion defense that they've played. The linebacking core, I mean, you can't say enough about Fred Warner and what he's been able to do, but outside of that, there's been no production. Obviously, Dre Greenlaw was a huge loss for them this season when he went down to the Super Bowl last year. So, but we saw the game and a half that he did play, what a huge difference he makes on defense, and I expect him to be back, obviously, the next season. And I expect the Niners to at least have another plan at linebacker, whether that's through the draft or through free agency to have someone that's legitimate can come in and start in day one in case Fred Warner or Dre Greenlaw were to go down, because we saw this season how not having a third linebacker really hurt this team. So there's a bunch of different holes that the team needs to plug up, obviously, and there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. But you know, if you want to, like I said, if you want to be serious about contending, you have to look at the defensive coordinator position and really think to yourself, is Sorensen going to give you the best chance?
Yeah, and the answer is most likely no, right? Especially if other guys are out there that would be an upgrade. And like you mentioned, the Niners, if all goes well in the offseason, should be back in the Super Bowl contention next year, right? I mean, you expect them to stock up through the draft. Christian McCaffrey will be back. Hopefully, they bring Dre back. They might bring Hufanga back.
I
Maybe
think Trevor
Mooney,
will come
maybe
back.
Charvarius Ward is back on a 1-year deal,
Yeah,
right? So if they bring some of these core guys back and then draft O line, draft D line, build it up, Purdy contract gets done, there's no reason they can't be back in the fold next year, right? So you have to capitalize and make sure that whoever your defensive coordinator is somebody that you can fully rely on and can get the job done. Because if it doesn't happen next year, then I don't know if it's going to happen with this team. I mean, they have to be back at it next year. And Randy's question, who did they replace Purdy with? I don't think they replaced Purdy. I mean,
come back.
we talked about a couple weeks ago. There was rumors flying around about Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold. We talked about Aaron Rodgers as a potential option, right? Just throwing names out there, but Aaron Rodgers is really old. I mean, I don't think he's an upgrade over Purdy at this point. I know he still has the arm, the IQ, and everything, but I don't think the Niners want anything to do with him. Kirk
Attitude.
Cousins washed. There's a reason he got benched, and Michael Penix looks really good over there in Atlanta. They probably should have went to him a few weeks ago. So, Kirk Cousins maybe as a backup if you want to have a veteran number 2 guy, would be great, but he's not going to replace him. Sam Darnold, I don't know. It's interesting, right? Because let's say he leads Minnesota to the Super Bowl this year or NFC Championship game and plays well along the way, right? Doesn't cost him a game, doesn't throw like an interception, ends up losing the game or something. He plays well. Sam Darnold would be a cheaper option than Purdy. I mean, Purdy's going to get let's say Purdy's getting 5 years, 265 million, right? That's a little over 50, maybe like 51, 52 a year.
Mm-hmm.
With whatever guaranteed he gets. You can maybe get Sam Darnold for 3 years and I don't know, 110 million, maybe he gets like 32, 33 in annual average money. It's not a bad option. I mean, it saves you money on the salary cap, and you get a quarterback who just went out there and proved he can do what he did in Kevin O'Connell's system. He could do that in Shanahan's system too. So
For sure. I mean,
who knows?
Shanahan kind of resurrected him a little bit too, because nobody
He
wanted.
100% did.
Yeah, nobody wanted to take a chance on Sam Darnold after what happened in Carolina and what happened after the Jets, right? But coming out of that, that last game of the season last year was an audition for him for, the other 31 teams in the NFL, and obviously the Minnesota Vikings had a need after Kirk Cousins left in free agency, and they had drafted JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy was most likely going to become the starter had he not gotten hurt, which means Sam Darnold probably would have never gotten a chance to see the field. He would have probably, most likely been a backup for the Vikings, and who knows how their season would have gone if they would have had JJ McCarthy over Sam Darnold. So, there is a mutual respect there, obviously. If the Niners were to explore that option of wanting to bring Sam Darnold back, that Sam Darnold has a situation that he could come back to in San Francisco that he would trust, right, with Kyle Shanahan, with someone that helped him, learn more about the game and fine-tuned his game and helped him achieve a level of success that he's never achieved before. Obviously, Kevin O'Connell is an amazing offensive coordinator. Like, he does so much with so little.
But even he credited Kyle Shanahan for reviving Sam Darnold, because Sam Darnold came to SF and learned a lot from Shanahan in terms of how to watch film, how to break down film in different ways, and how to read an offense in a different way and read coverages, right? All this stuff. So it's something they talked about on the radio today that, his Sam Darnold playing a backup, not even being a starter with the Niners, but being a backup for a season really helped him. And, it goes to go show you that just sometimes these guys just need to be on the right team with the right coach in the right system with good players to thrive, right? I mean, Purdy's done it, with the Niners, and yeah, he regressed a little bit this year, but we've seen guys go to different teams. I mean, you think about Baker Mayfield, what he's doing in Tampa Bay with the Bucks. He's
Touchdown passes
been
this year.
what was that?
He has 40 touchdown passes this year, Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, like who would have thought, right? That Baker was going to go off for 40 like that.
And we're on the same team in fucking Carolina, bro. It's not about the player. Sometimes it's about the situation you're in, right?
Yeah, and I saw some people trashing Baker because of his time with the Browns, and it's like you can't blame him for that. Like, sure, he could have played better here and there, but I mean, I think he had like 2 or 3 different head coaches in his 4 years with the Browns. That organization is obviously a shit show in itself, right? But yeah, coming back to the topic, right? Maybe the Niners do look at Sam Darnold in the offseason. I don't know. We'll see, right? It's certainly not something you can't disregard. Because the Niners, this is a big decision in the offseason for the 49ers, right? The first question is Purdy going to be the Niners franchise guy? And if so, at what price? So we'll see. Eli said Kyle Shanahan needs to be head coach and not just offensive coordinator. Yeah, I mean, that's something we've talked about. They should definitely look into getting an offensive coordinator. Will they do it? Highly doubt it. Kyle Shanahan, just too much ego over there, too much pride. But John Lynch should definitely bring that up as a topic of conversation. But even if they don't, I mean, I honestly don't care. If they bring in a better DC, I think that would solve a lot of their problems. I do think they can get it done with Shanahan running the plays. I mean, he did a great job tonight dialing up the offense. I thought he did really well. I mean, yes, they should have got Garendo more touches in the backfield, but the Lions did a really good job of stopping the run tonight. So
these guys, like the Lions, they couldn't stop the pass, right? Purdy just made one mistake and it fucking, snowballed the entire evening for them, right? So, if he doesn't throw that pick, right? If he actually hits Ricky in stride, Ricky might still be running for a touchdown. You don't know, right? Like, it's just all these like small miscues that he's had over the season that have obviously like ballooned up to this point. But this is just a microcosm of their season, man. Like, it's not just Brock Purdy that's, the reason why for their losses. It's special teams, it's defense, it's coaching. Like, it's just like all around, organizational effort has been terrible this season, right? And some of those things are not in their control. I mean, obviously, a lot of the personal issues that the players had, getting shot, deaths in the family and stuff, you can't control that, right? But things that they could control, that they should have controlled, they just never did.
Randy said, I lost faith in the coach, especially after they played McCaffrey in those back-to-back games coming off the injury. I feel like he's partially to blame for McCaffrey's injury. I mean, we did talk about this after Purdy got hurt too. We didn't even think he should have been not that he should have been not playing, but one thing Shanahan could have done better to manage that situation is still been giving touches to Jordan Mason and also Garendo, and not just force feeding 20 to 25 touches to McCaffrey coming off in the Achilles tendonitis, right? So can you blame Shanahan for the injury? No, of course not, right? It's part of the game, unfortunately. But yes, he could have definitely managed that situation better, and utilize a 2 to 3 man backfield. So it sucks. I mean, look, at least with McCaffrey, it wasn't an Achilles tear or an ACL injury, right? Nothing that's going to linger into next season. He should be back and ready for week 1 next year. But sucks, man. It sucks. It's this game was just the epitome of the Niners season, where even when they're playing well, you feel like they're in a game, they still find a way to lose. I mean, it happened this week. It happened last week against Miami. It happened against the Rams. It's happened multiple times this season. I think the Niners got one more year. I'm not going to say their windows closed yet. Eli said their windows closed. I think they got one more year. This is the most pivotal offseason in the Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch era, 100%, because you're coming off a season in which you do get a little bit of a pass given all the injuries and adversity this team has faced, but now you're going to have a top 10, top 12 pick in the draft. You got cap space. You got to take care of your quarterback. You got to look at the offensive line, the defensive line. We've gone through all the different things that this team needs. Another tight end. Bring Dre back, bring Hufanga back. A lot of these guys. So we'll see, man. I think they got one more year. I'm not saying this is it. And next year, Super Bowl 60 is right here at Levi's Stadium. So if there's ever a time for the 49ers to end the drought, it's next season. But if that doesn't happen next year, then I will jump on that boat and say that the window has closed.
For sure, 100%. And I'll take it a step further. If they don't, for any reason, get it done next year, I would not bring Kyle Shanahan back after that, depending on how the season goes next season. If it's a situation where they have a similar season to this again, where it's 6-11 or 7-10, and you don't have key injuries, and it's just Brock Purdy underperforming, and you not addressing some of these situations, like not addressing the DC situation, not addressing the offensive line situation, and you go 7-10 or like 8-9 or whatever the case is again. I'm sorry, Kyle, you got to go at that point. And this is why it's so pivotal, is because they have such a big financial decision to make on Brock Purdy. Because I feel like Brock Purdy, if you give him that contract, that also extends Kyle Shanahan's lifeline as well by at least 2 years, right? 2 years after this year, meaning next season and the season after that, right? Because you would have to give this coach and this player on this contract at least a 2 to 3 year period to actually show what they can do, right? So
fuck, they've had that, man. I mean, like, 2022, all right, Purdy gets hurt in the title game. Last year they had their chance, they couldn't get it done. This year, injuries. One more year, I think, is what they give him. And I mean, we talked about this too. Maybe they do look into tagging Purdy, franchise tag for one season, or maybe they offer him a 3-year deal and not like a 4 or 5 year max that we've seen other guys get. Maybe they're like, hey, we're giving you a 3-year deal. Here's 150. 110 is guaranteed, or 120. Maybe more of it's guaranteed, but maybe they have a way to get an out after the first season or the second season, right? To kind of save themselves for the long haul. So that's a very interesting point, though. Is they give Purdy a 5-year contract extension, it does kind of extend the lifeline of Shanahan with the franchise. And
yeah,
who knows? Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, man. Maybe whether they give him the 5-year or they go tag him or shorter contract or just go in a different direction. I mean, they have a lot to figure out this offseason. And it sucks that even when, we get to this point where we're starting to feel like Purdy was our guy after what he did last season. I feel like we finally have a franchise quarterback. He regresses this year. And now here we are talking about potential other options. And we need to find a franchise quarterback, man. I mean, can we win with Purdy? Yes, but he's not in that category of a guy I feel confident with. Like, we don't have a Mahomes yet. We don't have a Joe Burrow yet. We don't even have a Jalen Hurts yet. It felt like we were starting to get there, but it's just not there yet.
Yeah, and it's kind of unfortunate because, after we saw him ball out in 22, obviously, and then we were like, okay, this is a good story. Let's see how he does in 23, right? Like, they still have a good roster around him. He should be able to perform, and he exceeded expectations last season, to be honest with you.
And he's an MVP candidate, crazy at one point.
Yeah, he, outside of that Ravens game, outside of that, he was really good the entire season, right? Even in the Super Bowl, like, people want to give him shit. He made all the throws that he could make, given the situation that he was put in with that offensive line, right? So he brought them back in the two matchups in the NFC playoffs. So, I was really looking forward to, obviously seeing more Brock Purdy this season and seeing what he could do how he could do more with less, right? That's what I wanted to see this season. And he didn't live up to the expectation, and it's tough, right? I mean, the guy's 24 years old. He's a young quarterback still. And I think sometimes we forget, just because he had early success with a full team around him, I think it was unfair for us to actually think that he could elevate everybody else around him with way less around him. So I don't know, man. A franchise quarterback is supposed to do that, right? I think they're going to pay him like a franchise quarterback. Unfortunately, that's what the market is. I'm sorry for anyone that thinks that he's going to take a pay cut. He's not going to do that. He was on a pay cut for the last 3 years, for the guys. So they failed him just as much as he's failed them, right? So it goes both ways in my opinion. The quarterback can only go so far as his team around him goes, right? I mean, Joe Burrow, he's putting up MVP numbers, but his team's 8-8 because the rest of the team has so many different issues that they haven't been able to figure out all season for that quarterback to be fully successful and be a true winner. So I think Brock kind of fell down that same path this season. Obviously, he missed that game against the Packers, right? And then he came back. He probably rushed back to play against the Bills because he still had a chance for the NFC playoffs at that point. But it's there's a lot of questions for sure still unanswered about Brock Purdy, and we're not going to know what it is unless they pivot to a different point with quarterback or if they pay him, right? Like we just won't know until he has a full team around him next season.
Yeah, I mean, like Randy said, I think Purdy knows he needs a long-term deal. Of course, I mean, Purdy wants every penny he can get, right? He's looking for the full 5 years,
As he should.
50 to 60 mil, as he should, right? Of course, if you're a player, you want to get every single penny you can, as you mentioned, especially because he's been on the best value contract, arguably in the entire NFL for the last couple of years, right? No team in the NFL has a starting quarterback making $850,000 a year. And when you think about how much he's getting paid and how he's played, it's pretty good. The Niners have definitely extracted a lot out of Purdy. And don't forget, guys, this is a guy who was the last pick in the NFL draft, Mr. Irrelevant. Took this team to 2 NFC Championship games, to 1 Super Bowl, played well in that Super Bowl, and played really well all of last season, aside from maybe like 2 games. So, but it's for Purdy, it's time he has to get over that hump. When the comments is talking about Purdy's not a closer, he hasn't been able to win them games. There's some truth to that, but there's also some, we got to give some credit to Purdy, because in those 2 playoff games last year, when they came back against the Packers and especially against the Lions, it was Purdy who was making plays with his legs. Remember, picking up those first downs when the Niners made that comeback against the Lions. This year, I mean, I know they lost that game to the Rams early in the season, but Purdy had 8 incompletions in that game. 7 of those 8 incompletions were drop passes by wide receivers. I know you guys remember Ronnie Bell, right, dropping that ball. That's not on Purdy. I mean, he led them down and just drop passes, right? We can't blame that one on him. The Arizona game, I mean, he played well in that one. They just defense couldn't get stops at the end of the game, and they lost that one, right? So while we've been critical of Purdy, we've also got to give him the praise where he deserves it too. So I don't want them to pivot away from him. I do think we can win with Purdy, and unless there's a clear-cut better option, or there's a path to get a guy who's better than Purdy via trade, there's no one else out there right now that can exceed what Purdy's done. Give him a season with a healthy offensive line, a good offensive line. McCaffrey's back there. Ayuk will return next season. We'll see what they do with Debo. Kittle will be back. Ricky Pearsall will be back. Juwan Jennings will be back, right? So give him a season. Maybe you tag him for a year, make him go out there and prove it. And if he plays well, then maybe you give him an extension after that. I don't know. We'll see. This is a big offseason, man. It's a huge, huge offseason for the 49ers.
100%, man. And, you hit on all the points. Like this offseason goes even farther than Brock Purdy, right? In what his situation is. There's just so many different situations that this team needs to figure out. Like we have no quarterback under contract going into next season. Brock Purdy, Brandon Allen, Josh Dobbs, they're all free agents. So you expect, okay, Brock Purdy will most likely be back. Hopefully it's a friendly enough deal for them to go out and make moves. I think he's the type of guy that can also help a team in that type of situation. He knows he needs dudes around him to be successful. He wants dudes around him to be successful. And look, man, the team is always behind Brock, 100%. They've been behind him for the last year and a half, ever since he took over as a starting quarterback of the 49ers, right? He's a well-liked guy. He's a well-respected person, not just within the franchise. Amongst the NFL, this guy is very, very well-respected. And it's very hard to find guys like that in today's day and age of quarterback play, right? Like the guy is, he's a very, he's a charming guy, right? In that sense that he's good around every single person that he's around, right? And you don't want a situation where you bring in an Aaron Rodgers and he breaks your locker room and it's, and it's mental fortitude. You don't want a situation with Kirk Cousins where he feels like he's the it guy and he has to make it publicly known that he is the it guy when it comes to like game-winning situations and all that kind of stuff, right? He's a little too boisterous, for
great pocket passer, but he's not mobile. I mean, 36, 37 years old, coming off an Achilles injury, right? Threw 9 interceptions in the last 4 games, I think it was. So how is he an upgrade, right? He's not at all.
No.
So
Brock Purdy is the answer for the 49ers moving forward until, he is not. So as far as I'm concerned, the quarterback thing is a non-starter, especially after tonight. He played well in the first half, man. He looked like the franchise quarterback in the first half. I think he just made a couple of mistakes in the second half. Obviously, the Lions made some adjustments, and it is what it is. And his kicker left 7 points on the board. So I don't think we need to look too far past it. His defense gave up 40 points. His kicker leaves 7 points on the board. He's able to put up 28 points. I mean, how much more do you want to ask of a guy that's picked in the 7th round with the last pick in the NFL draft and he's 24 years old? Like, we have to temper our expectations as well.
Yeah, we talk about quarterback play, like some of the guys we've talked about. Let's think about this. Baker Mayfield, former number 1 overall pick, didn't start thriving until like he really got to the Rams, right? And he played those couple games. Yep. And Sean McVay made the most, maximize his skill set and everything. And then Baker goes to Tampa Bay and starts balling out. And it's maybe year 6 or year 7 for Baker, right?
Yep.
Josh Allen, top 2, top 3 quarterback in the NFL, arguably the MVP this season. His first 3-4 years in the league was getting better gradually each season, right? He always had the arm talent, but accuracy was an issue. Being able to read defenses was an issue for him. And it wasn't until his 3rd or 4th year that he started to get into that elite category. And now he's been in that position, right, for the last probably 2 to 3 years. So, I think sometimes we have to like temper our expectations of Brock Purdy too, because this is only his 2nd full season as a starter, 3rd season in the NFL. He's vastly over exceeded expectations, right? No one thought that Brock Purdy, when he came in that day against the Miami Dolphins after Jimmy G got hurt, that he would have elevated this team the way he did and got them to. We were texting at that day. I remember we were like, well, there goes the season. And what happens? Purdy leads them to 8 or 9 straight wins and all the way to the NFC title game, right? And every Niner fan knows this. If Purdy doesn't get hurt in that game, the Niners make it to the Super Bowl. Do they win the Super Bowl? Who knows? But he definitely gets them to that point if he doesn't get hurt, right? So you're talking about back-to-back almost Super Bowl performances or Super Bowl appearances from the last pick in the draft, right? We can't expect Purdy to be Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen. So let's reel it back a little bit. I mean, last year Purdy was a top 5 quarterback the way he played in the NFL. I'm not saying he's a top 5 quarterback in general, but last season he played like a top 5 quarterback. This season, regressed in a big way. Sometimes it was his fault. Sometimes it wasn't, when you look at what's around him. So let's give him one more year, whether they put him on a tag or give him a shorter deal, whatever Purdy gets. I feel like the Niners are in control here because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to be cutting him the check. I don't think any other team out there is going to give Purdy a max deal like the Niners would. So, and Purdy isn't doing himself any favors with how he's playing down the stretch here. Now he's done for the season too. So, the Niners' lasting memory of him this season is going to be how he played tonight, with those 2 second half interceptions. But I do think they can win with Purdy because they did almost do it last season. But he's going to have to improve if they want to get over the hump and win a Super Bowl. So,
for sure.
Guys, don't be hating on my Kobe poster in the background, all right? Kobe's Kobe. Come on, you can't hate on him. It's not like I got a LeBron poster back there or something. It's Kobe. So leave me alone. But hey, thank you guys, everyone, for tuning in tonight and for all the comments and everything. I thought after the first half we were going to be talking about a win in the post game pod, but didn't go that way. Obviously, the Niners fell tonight, 40-34 to the Lions. Purdy with 2 interceptions, Jake Moody with 2 missed field goals and an extra point. Those 2 guys were the difference in the game right there. I mean, Purdy takes care of the ball. If Moody makes his kick, the Niners upset the Lions tonight. And, I don't care if it would have pushed them back in the draft a little bit. It would have been amazing to beat the Lions again after beating them last year in the NFC Championship. So, the Niners take the L next week. Season finale is against the Arizona Cardinals at Arizona. Josh Dobbs most likely be making his first start of the season for the 49ers because Purdy's dealing with a nerve issue now in his elbow, so he's pretty much done for the season. But yeah, we'll do another pod for sure after next week's game, and we'll kind of just take away some of the positives. You know, the good thing is we'll get to see a lot of the younger guys get more reps. You know, Ricky Pearsall, as we mentioned, huge game tonight. I'm super happy for him. I think he's the future at the wide receiver position for the 49ers,
For sure.
along with Ayuk over there. So, you know, we'll get to see more of these young guys, like I said, play next week, and we'll see if the Niners can end the season on a dub. But yeah, thank you guys all for tuning in tonight. My co-host, he's Amandeep Kuner. I'm Sandeep Singh Chandok, and we will catch you guys next week here on the Deep Dive. Everyone have a great New Year's Eve. Be safe. Don't drink and drive, all that. You guys have a good night, and we will catch you guys next year.
Thanks, guys.